Prophecies are inherently open to interpretation. Their prevalence throughout A Song of Ice and Fire has created a wide variation in the perceived accuracy of visions of the future, both within the readers themselves and within the story's characters. Some, such as Cersei and Rhaegar, allow their every waking action to be dominated by ominous foretellings. On the other side of this coin, Tyrion Lannister compares prophecy to a half-trained mule. To quote from his chapters in A Dance with Dragons, "It looks as though it might be useful, but the moment you trust in it, it kicks you in the head." The sheer volume of prophecy in the main series has resulted in a number of these visions seemingly being unfulfilled, snuffed out before they reach reality. Today I'm going to be examining one such prophecy mentioned throughout the first book, and how it could be fulfilled in a way that is not often discussed. And hey, if you do enjoy this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. I do really appreciate that. It really helps grow the channel. But without further ado, let's get into the prophecy of the stallion that mounts the world as it relates to Daenerys' story in the future of A Song of Ice and Fire. This particular prophecy comes from early on in Daenerys' story in A Game of Thrones. Through her eyes, the reader learns a great deal about the culture of the Dothraki horde into which she was married. In her 5th chapter, Dany begins to hear of this mythological figure called the Stallion who mounts the world. Not only does she learn about this prophesied Dothraki hero, but it is said that her son with Khal Drogo will be this stallion. Dany is told this by a one-eyed crone who appears to be a fortune teller of some sort. It is at this moment she decides on her son's name, Rhaego. This is a combination of Rhaegar, the name of her dead brother, and Drogo, the name of her husband. So what exactly does this prophecy entail? In that same chapter, Daenerys 5, A Game of Thrones, the full vision of this hero is discussed. The crone recites this prophecy to Dany and to the masses. To quote from that same chapter, "As swift as the wind he rides, and behind him his Khalasar covers the earth, men without number, with aurochs shining in their hands like blades of razor grass. Fierce as a storm this prince will be. His enemies will tremble before him, and their wives will weep tears of blood and rend their flesh in grief. The bells in his hair will sing his coming, and the milkmen in stone tents will fear his name." The old woman trembled and looked at Dany almost as though she were afraid. "The prince is riding, and he shall be a stallion who mounts the world." This prophecy is also reiterated later by Jorah Mormont when Dany asks of its significance. "The stallion is the cowl of cows, promised in ancient prophecy, child. He will unite the Dothraki into a single Khalasar and ride to the ends of the earth, or so it was promised. All people of the world will be his herd." All of this is quite interesting and pretty great world building and mythology for the Dothraki, but how does it connect to the current story, and what role might it play in the Winds of Winter? Dany's son Rhaego was killed by Mirri Maz Dur, so he wasn't even born, and it doesn't seem as though he'll be fulfilling any prophecies, unless he's time traveling, and Tyrion, and also a Targaryen, and that's a theory that I don't want to get into today. However, it does seem quite likely that the death of Rhaego paid for another life, transferring his soul into another being, and potentially allowing this prophecy of the stallion that mounts the world to live on in another form. After Drogo is left a vegetable and Rhaego is killed, Daenerys holds a funeral pyre for the both of them. Mirri is tied to this pyre as punishment for these murders, and Dany's 3 dragon eggs are placed atop the ceremony as well. As is well known by this point, this pyre results in the rebirth of Daenerys' dragons and the re-entry of magic into the world. However, this birth doesn't seem to have just happened. Something in the pyre triggered it, and the creation of these magical beings was paid for somehow. Many fans have theorized that the lives given within the pyre to the dragons are transferred from those who had entered the pyre as corpses or as living beings. If you'd want more detail on this theory, I'd highly recommend Glidus' Only Death Can Pay for Life video, which is linked in the cards. To sum it up quickly, Drogo's soul goes into Drogon, giving the dragon life. Viserys' soul goes into Viserion, likely carried by Drogo following the Golden Crown incident, giving the dragon life. And Rhaego's soul goes into Rhaegal, carried by Mirri after the infant's murder, giving the dragon life. So if the soul was transferred from Dany's child, the stallion who mounts the world, that prophecy might still factor into the story going forward. I think a compelling case could be made for any of Dany's 3 dragons being this prophesied hero, and the rest of this video will be dedicated to exploring each of these dragons as a potential prophetic option in depth. Drogon seems to be a strong candidate for this prophecy. He's the dragon to which Daenerys is bonded, and it seems as though he is in the best and most direct position to unite the Khalasar at the moment. At the end of A Dance with Dragons, the most recent book in the series, Dany and Drogon are stranded in the Dothraki Sea, and Dany is soon taken in by a Khalasar. In order to advance her claim on the Iron Throne, Dany will need to escape the Khalasar, or to absorb them into her larger army as a whole. We've seen her seize army through displays of power in the past, most notably with the Unsullied, and at the moment the only symbol of power she possesses is Drogon. Drogon may serve as a force that unites the Dothraki behind Daenerys and positions them for an invasion of Westeros as a whole. This could also tie into the events that seem likely to happen at King's Landing. The prophecy of the stallion who mounts the world states that the bells in his hair will signal his coming, and the men in their castles will tremble in fear and weep tears of blood. The bells seem quite likely to play a big role in the conflict at King's Landing once Dany arrives, mostly due to Jon Connington's bell-related PTSD. Perhaps these bells and the exploding wildfire would disorient Drogon and cause him to attack portions of the city. Or it could simply mean that the people of King's Landing will generally be fearful during the events of the bells in the books, as is portrayed in Season 8, Episode 5 of the show. Overall, these bells aren't in Drogon's hair, so to speak, but dragons don't have hair, and it would be pretty terrifying if they did. So overall, them being in the city and important to this battle could be the kind of prophecy close proximity thing that Martin likes to do, typically. So there's a pretty strong case to be made that Drogon is the stallion that mounts the world. However, there are two other dragons to examine for this potential role. Rhaegal might seem like the most obvious choice from the outset, as he's potentially named after Daenerys' son, who is supposed to fulfill that same prophetic role. Many believe that Jon Snow will ride Rhaegal someday, and the other individual for which Rhaegar was named is Jon's father, Rhaegar Targaryen. So this connection between dragon and rider could very much make sense for Jon. Jon Snow doesn't seem to have any ambitions of conquest. However, these ideas of uniting the Horde for a singular purpose could indicate that the Dothraki fighting against the others rather than against the realms of men. The prophecy, as restated by Jorah, also specifically mentions riding to the ends of the earth, which evokes images of the far north and the Wall. Jon riding Rhaegal could very much act as a uniting force for the Khalasar and really for the world as a whole, directing them towards the true enemy, the ancient threat lurking to the north of the Wall. Viserion is the final dragon, and seems to be the least likely to fulfill this prophecy. That said, there's still an angle from which I could see this happening. Dany's dragons are an incredibly powerful magical force, envied by many across the world. In the Game of Thrones show, we saw the White Walkers claim a dragon after killing it north of the Wall. In the books, Euron aims to claim at least one of Daenerys' dragons via the magical warhorn Dragonbinder, which is currently sailing with Victarion eastward towards Daenerys' dragons and forces. Should he be successful, or should the others claim a dragon as they did in the show, the stallion who mounts the world may not be a positive uniting force that Dany thinks it might be. It might be something out of her control that is able to cause mass destruction, potentially with the help of the Dothraki if they follow it as a signal of strength. This could directly tie into how the Dothraki are seen by the outside world. While Dany adopts their culture as her own, many outsiders fear the Horde and the destruction they bring with them. A dragon uniting the Horde behind a force of evil, such as Euron or the others, would further reinforce the views the majority of Westeros and Essos regarding the Dothraki and their raiding. It does seem more likely that Dragon drawing this force of evil together would be the others as compared to Euron, as the prophecy might be foretelling the death of the Dothraki. Perhaps Dany will lead her Horde and dragons into battle against the others, only to have the dragon and most of the Horde fall, only to rise again, given the strength of their foe and the fact that the dead rise when the others are involved. The idea of the Horde having these glowing araks in the prophecy, as mentioned in the Crone passage, does evoke the imagery of swords of ice wielded by the others. And the imagery comparing the stallion who mounts the world to a storm does seem to correspond to the blizzard that the others' conquest is going to bring with them upon Westeros and the world as a whole, potentially, should it not be stopped. Looking at these candidates, any of these three dragons could end up being the stallion who mounts the world. I think Drogon seems like the most likely, as the Khalasar will unite behind Dany and potentially invade Westeros from there, but the idea of Viserion being killed or being taken over by Euron and leading the Dothraki that way is also quite intriguing and could fulfill Martin's general ideas of having prophecies be subverted, perhaps for evil, with the whole getting kicked in the head with a mule analogy. Though I'd also note that it is quite possible that Rhaegal is the one that's going to be taken over by Euron or by the others, as the two are pretty interchangeable in the show. They really don't have much of a personality, and in the show, those dragons all look exactly the same, which really doesn't help with distinguishing them. But yeah, no, could be either overall. I think that because of this, there's maybe a better chance in the books that it's Rhaegal who ends up leaving Dany's service in the long term, but it could be any of the three dragons. So, which of these three dragons do you think is the stallion that mounts the world? Do you think it's someone else entirely? Is it Jinglebell Frey, which is actually a really interesting theory that I came across while researching this video that actually checked out more than I expected it to? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. While you're down there, be sure to like, subscribe, all that typical YouTube stuff. I really appreciate it. I actually thought of this idea for a video on a live stream the other day, so that's something I might start doing a bit more of in the coming weeks, months, whatever. Because I had a ton of fun and it was really great. I think I'll probably do a Q&A live stream at some point in the future. So be sure to subscribe and stay tuned for that. I'd look forward to answering all y'all's questions. Until then, and until my next video, I bid you all adieu, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. I'll talk to you all soon.